inherent limit of speed for light, or is it always dependent upon the medium?
Well, like I said, you have to see, the billiard table analogies, you've canceled out the influence of the field, and you just have a certain amount of kinetic energy which dissipates in friction.
Right.
So now try and picture a field. Turn the billiard ball table at right angles,
okay,
so the billiard balls start falling towards the ground. Then you've got a gravitational field.
Yes.
Okay. Now picture the same thing going from the sun to the Earth, propelling electrons from the sun to the Earth.
Okay.
So then that, like I said, I don't pretend to completely understand gravity, and
okay.
I think if there's a black hole, when people invoke these black holes, then my interpretation would be, well, that's a region where the electric and magnetic fields are incorrectly oriented, and so nothing happens in there because you don't have the proper orientation.
Okay.
But to see that, you'd have to be old enough, as I am, to remember what a vacuum tube looks like in the back of a TV or a radio.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Now, how many people in your congregation, their TVs all have transistors now?
Right, yeah.
So I remember what a vacuum tube looks like.
Yeah, right. Well,
yeah.
But yeah, we have them in our amplifiers, our old guitar amplifiers and such. So I do remember what they look like. Yeah. Well, okay. So now, what now is the difference now between, because Einstein did not believe in quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics suggests an entirely new feature, namely, choice, as I understand quantum mechanics, and Einstein says, I don't believe God throws the dice, okay? But a lot of these quantum mechanics experiments seem to produce totally, incoherent results. But there's got to be a pattern to the madness, right?
Okay, nice question. Thank you. Okay. Now, try to picture. Since there's younger people, take the cover off your guitar amp and you look at that vacuum tube.
Okay.
Okay, and it's got that beautiful glow. It's glowing nice and light yellow.
Yes.
And what you do is you're playing your electric guitar, and the glow changes in the tube. It gets brighter and dimmer, dimmer, because it's the process of amplification. Well, what's going on there is not only that there's an electric field between the filament and the plate.
Mm-hmm.
There's not only a gradient, but sometimes it's shaped like a common cycloid, sometimes it's shaped like a curtailed cycloid, and sometimes it's shaped like a prolate cycloid. And because you're not thinking about these transitions from one shape to the next,
mm-hmm.
you attribute what you observe to the idea of mass.
Okay.
It's a false attribution. In other words, see things Joel Mayer's way, and you'll say, okay, so in other words, the reason I turn up the volume, and there's a certain amount of lag time until my electric guitar really comes in.
Really
so that means that those electrons are getting too darn heavy. No, what you're seeing is a transition from a curtate cycloid to a prolate cycloid field. So you see these transitions from one field to the next, which gives you these sharp distinctions, and you're saying, "Oh, that electron's gotten real fat now. It's fat."
Right.
Now think of the same realm, and now we'll picture the great God of Einstein up in the clouds, and he's looking down on us, and he says, God does not play dice.
Right.
I, Albert Einstein, I'm telling you, he's Moses now. He's up in the cloud now. He's behind the veil. He's got his staff. He's telling Pharaoh, and he says, God does not play dice. Now, I'll tell you what happened. When Abraham de Moivre's formula was taken out of the literature, when he was banished,
mm-hmm.
that meant that the energy waves that had to do with coming off the vacuum tubes, that's an area called quantum electrodynamics.
Okay.
If you want to be a Jew with a PhD, you get the PhD in quantum electrodynamics,
okay.
which essentially is television repairman.
Okay.
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 A PhD in quantum electrodynamics, boom, you can repair televisions, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right.
If you can use a voltmeter. So with de Moivre's formula out of the picture, the formula that was substituted was one by Gauss and also one by Maxwell. Neither of those formulas are sufficient. So stay tuned, campers, because when my book is complete,
okay.
I'm going to explain that boo-boo
Yeah.
And I'm going to show that electromagnetic energies, it's not only that it looks like a bell-shaped curve, but that it can be taken back to a binomial where instead of seeing a smooth distribution, you get columns.
Okay.
Okay? Like I was trying to tell you, the perfect analogy is you have quarters in a plastic box. You shake the box. Half the time, once in a while you get all heads. The quarters are all heads. Once in a while you get all tails. Most of the time you get half heads and half tails, and that results in a step pyramid. When you keep putting quarters into the box, the more quarters you add, the more the step pyramid seems to have smooth shoulders and seems to have a smooth curve.
Right.
But when you banish Abraham de Moivre's formula, you can't get from the manifestation back to the binomial. So that's where Einstein got that hazy idea. He didn't know as much about mathematics as Joel Mayer does. So Einstein, like any Jew, you have to understand where the Jews shine in the Old Testament. They make the Red Sea part.
Okay, well that was God who did that.
That's right. They put up Hezekiah's conduit and get water to go from where it is to where it doesn't want to go.
Yes.
And sure enough, then the water dries up.
Yeah.
Okay? Or they'll make the heavens stand still. But a Jew has got to work out physics so that there's nothing in it at all that's intuitive. There's nothing that has anything to do with geometry because that's too beautiful, too wholesome.
Right.
You know, look at a painting by Picasso, or who's that filthy guy who squirts paint? Not Picasso, but there's somebody. I can't.
I know who you mean, but yeah.
Yeah, he squirts paint on the canvas. It's like it's an ejaculation.
Right.
And that's Jewish art.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're always like that. It has to be scatological.
Right.
For a Jew to get to feel comfortable and warm and happy, there has to be a scatological interpretation. So sorry to take so long, but when Einstein said God does not play dice, it's because nobody could get from they couldn't get from Gauss's formula back to Bernoulli's formula because de Moivre was banished from the world. But de Moivre's formula is where Gauss got his formula. Gauss basically modified de Moivre's formula, and in the modern way that Gauss modified it, it won't take you back to a binomial distribution. So that's why the Jewish community became absolutely certain that they were doing things the right way. That's why they actually have subatomic particles that have flavors. They're talking about subatomic. I'm serious. They say green flavor, blue flavor, purple flavor, la 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 la. He's in front of the wailing. He's in front of the wailing wall, and he's playing a shell game with you. He's moving the 3 walnut shells on the blanket, and if you don't find the pea, it's pretty mad off. If you don't find the pea, he takes your home away from you.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. Okay, well, where does this leave us now with quantum mechanics? What is quantum mechanics telling us about the nature of reality and how energy fields become to be perceived and condensed as matter? How does this organization manifest itself?
Okay, so essentially, now what you're saying is to me, how do we get order out of all this chaos?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right. I'll explain that.
Okay.
Depending, if you shoot a cannonball out of a cannon, it will go over the arc of a parabola.
Right.
And it does that better on the moon than on the surface of the Earth because there's no atmosphere.
Right. There's no resistance
to a cannonball. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So the natural, in other words, what you end up with is, yes, there is a certain amount of chaos, but then also there are natural trajectories taken by systems when they're under certain sets of circumstances.
Sure.
The orientation of the field. So in other words, when a cannonball gets an acceleration coming out of the barrel due to the gunpowder, and then that acceleration ends at the mouth of the barrel, and then gravity takes hold, and gravity starts pulling down on the cannonball as the square of the elapsed time. So that's where you get your order.
Yeah.
When you have two separate fields, but the fields they have limited ranges. They're sort of like the boss over different times, and that's how you get order. Now you're saying your issue about molecular motion, that's so completely keen. Let me tell you where you're headed with that.
Okay.
What you're saying is like, well, if the genetic code has all this variability, how did we end up not being plasma?
Right.
Why aren't we puddles of plasma?
Right.
But the answer is because certain combinations of that code work out so that you're better off with this code than with another code. You see what I'm saying? Because you can
right.
You can metabolize. Suppose you're like a tiny little microorganism, and one of your enzymes mutates in a certain direction, and all of a sudden you can fixate nitrogen. Well, if you're in a nitrogen-rich environment, then you're going to have more babies than the bacterium next to you who didn't make that mutation. Now, Pastor, let me tell you this: you are perfectly in Scripture. Now, I'm
okay.
going to read from the book of Joshua.
Okay.
And here it says, this is chapter 14. And it says, by lot was their inheritance, as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses, for the 9 tribes and for the half tribes. Now, when he talks about tribes, he means race.
Yes.
And he's saying by lot, he means permutation theory. He means probability theory determines what your inheritance was. And if that isn't a description of the DNA code, I'll eat my New Testament. See, now that's it. That's it in the book of Joshua.
Yes.
So don't let anyone tell you that there's an absolute war between the church and science, because science is all in the Bible.
It is,
the intuition. Yeah, all you need is a PhD in mathematics, and you'd figure out the rest of it because you've got the right intuitions.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. So I'm still kind of the question I still have, and obviously there is order planned into the universe, and I really don't believe it comes out of chaos, but obviously the motions of these fields and particles in the field organize somehow. Is there perhaps, and the oldest concept that I'm familiar with is Platonic forms. Is it possible that we have like invisible forms around which these fields congregate? Any indication of that?
All right. What we're doing right now is we're talking about the issue of stability. Where generally what you invoke is you say that a system is going to consume the minimum amount of energy when it's in the most stable form.
Okay. Yes.
So we see the most frequently observed form as being the form that consumes the least amount of energy.
Okay. All right. That would make sense, yeah. And plus, if it doesn't absorb too much energy, it tends to stay stable. So there's a programmed stability in there, okay?
Well, let me give you an analogy. One of the things, I do have a favorite Jew.
Okay.
And my favorite Jew is Edward Teller. Believe it or not,
all right.
I thought Edward Teller was a very brilliant guy. And when Edward Teller was working on the hydrogen bomb,